Now, I want to just very briefly run through how we got here. This idea that we're eating fossil fuel is not immediately apparent. Basically, when we began industrializing agriculture, which is, begins before World War II, but really takes off with World War II, what we were doing, another way to phrase that, is we were taking labor out of the farm and replacing it with fossil fuel and technology. So that all the big innovations, not all of them, but most of the big innovations in agriculture, such as ammonium nitrate fertilizer, pesticides, most of which are made from petroleum, were basically fossil fuel products. And they were very much the products of World War II. We took the munitions. Ammonium nitrate is bomb fuel, as we learned in Oklahoma City a few years ago. And we converted that to fertilizer. The same factories that were making bombs one day, on a given day in 1947, began making fertilizer in great quantities. Vandana Shiva says that we are still eating the leftovers of World War II. And that's what she means. We're eating the result of that conversion of fertilizer and nerve gases, which became our pesticides. Those grew out of research into how to kill people. And we found that in tiny doses, they kill bugs pretty reliably. Now, the reason, what those technologies allow you to do is something that doesn't happen in nature very much, and that is monocultures. Very large fields of the same thing, which have certain advantages. A monoculture can be, in a very simple sense, an efficient technology. And these are technologies. One tractor, one pass can harvest a whole field of corn. One corn planter can plant 18 or 36 rows at the same time. So moving from diversity to this monoculture allowed you to greatly increase production. But you couldn't do it without these technologies. Because if you just had corn upon corn upon corn, you would deplete your soil. But ammonium nitrate fertilizer, a source of nitrogen, allowed you to replenish the soil from a bag. Monocultures are also supremely vulnerable to pests. You will build up a huge population of the pests of whatever, of your corn or your soy or whatever it is. So you can't have a monoculture without pesticides to defend them. And this worked really well. It still works really well from one measure. And we need to acknowledge the achievement of this system, which is that, put one way, you can walk into a fast food outlet and you can get yourself 2,000 or 3,000 calories of food, a day's worth, for less than the minimum wage for 1 hour. Now, if you think about it, in the long course of human history where people have put so much time and effort into keeping themselves fed, this is an amazing achievement. It just happens to have come at a very high cost. But we should acknowledge that. And this has been our policy. We have rewarded farmers for planting monocultures. We only subsidize 5 crops. If you are a corn farmer, we'll give you money to grow corn and soy, but if you want to put in a row of broccoli, that land is permanently ineligible for subsidies. Okay? It's illegal for you to diversify your farm under our current agriculture policies. We wanted to encourage this. Earl Butz, the great 1970s era ag secretary, said, plant fence row to fence row, get big or get out. And this was our goal. It was our goal because the public's interest was in having more cheap calories. And we need to remember when we started, I'm trying to be as sympathetic to this regime as I can, that early in the 20th century, the big public health problem was people were hungry. Even Kennedy, when he looked at poverty, found a great deal of rural hunger and urban hunger. So we asked our farmers to solve the great public health problem of that time, which was we need more cheap calories. And they did it. They did a brilliant job. The challenge today is to once again align the public interest with the work of farmers. Because I'm convinced that American farmers can do whatever we ask them to as a society. We just need to ask them for something a little different. Fossil fuel played other roles in the system. It allowed us to nationalize the system. We could move food from California with refrigerated trucks all the way to New York, and we began doing that. Fossil fuel pumped the water in the irrigation systems. Fossil fuel is what allows us today to have these, really crazy supply chains. I mean, we are catching salmon sustainably. Native Americans are catching salmon sustainably in Alaska. It is then being flown to China to be filleted, and then flown back to California to be eaten. So when you see that sustainable salmon at Whole Foods, you have to realize what hasn't been counted. California now feeds New York. That's an amazing idea. Iowa imports 90% of its food. This is the best soil in the world. Does not feed Iowa because they export raw material, corn and soy, gets turned into processed food. They buy it back. Iowa is a food desert by and large. As Herman Daly pointed out, we import sugar cookies from Denmark and we export sugar cookies to Denmark. And he said, it might be a good idea to swap recipes instead. But this system will not go on indefinitely. Something very interesting happened last summer when fuel prices got as high as they got. The cost of shipping a box of broccoli from Salinas Valley to the Hunts Point market in the Bronx went from $3 a box to $10 a box. Price of broccoli went through the roof in New York. And what happened when it hit that price was very interesting. You had companies like Tanmura and Antle and the big growers and packers in the Central Valley buying farmland in New England because they saw the writing on the wall. They saw that, this is crazy. We're not going to be able to ship produce across the country indefinitely. We are going to have to figure out a way to grow food nearer to where people live. That they will be doing it and not New England's farmers is a tragedy, I think. But hopefully the New England farmers will get in on that deal. So I think we understand that we're in this little moment of cheap fossil fuel, and that whatever you think of the system, however much you like it, it depends on that fossil fuel and cannot survive it getting expensive again. So the challenge is then, how do you get this system off of oil, which is so deeply implicated? And by the way, it's most implicated in the fact that we have no farmers left. We only have 1 million full-time farmers in this country. 305 million people are being fed by 1 million. That's astounding. These are the most productive humans who have ever lived.